In this video, we're going to take a look at the armored Horseclaw figure from Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind, one of Hayao Miyazaki's greatest films. We're first introduced to the Horseclaw early on in the Valley of the Wind. Lord Yupa is angered an Ohm, and the Ohm is chasing him and his two Horseclaws across the wastes. After saving Yopa, Nausicaa reunites with his Horseclaws, who are obviously friendly animals that appear kind of equivalent to horses in Miyazaki's world. We then run into Kashana's armored guards when they attack the Valley of the Wind. They seem like sort of an elite soldier with improved armor, and some are assigned to guard the Princess Kashana, but there are also some that just seem to be like shock troops. This is definitely one of my favorite films from when I first caught it on HBO in the 80s. As a kid, I had no idea what it was about and what was going on, but I knew there was something awesome about the art and the world that just stuck with me over the years. Years ago, I was lucky enough to pick up a translated version of his original manga. It's even printed in the authentic brown tones of the ink used, not the typical India ink we see in most modern comics that's very black. And in the manga, we get to see a lot more of the guards and the Horseclaws than we do in the actual anime. It's just a beautiful, beautiful manga. And so the Horseclaws always reminded me of Joust. If you grew up in the 80s and you hung out in arcades, you definitely played Joust. And I always thought it was a cool idea, cool concept, like these, sort of flying ostrich, sort of like the Horseclaws, with knights on them with lances, and they're just flying around, running around, kind of spearing each other. I always thought that would have made a cool figure. I wish I had a toy of that. And then there's, other examples, like in Final Fantasy, they have the chocobos, which are kind of like, almost the same thing as a Horseclaw. And, like the Joust kind of, mount horse type animal. And so over the years, we've gotten different model kits of the Horseclaw and of Nausicaa, but never a toy like this. So when I saw this was announced, I was really excited and knew I wanted to pick it up. I definitely wanted to get the armored version because I already had the Kashana's Bodyguard. I'd gotten that a few months ago. And I actually had the model kit of the Horseclaw, but I never built it. So I was really hopeful that this would be a really posable figure and, could be displayed in a lot of different ways. So before jumping into the Horseclaw, I thought I'd look at the armored figure, the Bodyguard first. It's a really beautiful figure. I didn't make a video of this, so I figured now I'd just cover it. It's really super accurate to the character that you see in the anime and the manga. It's the armor details all there. It has the right proportions and all the weapons, and it just feels really, really true to what it's trying to do. And so the Horseclaw, you can see here, it's really great how they matched up the armor, the detailing. It definitely looks like the same, designer who made the armor for the Bodyguard also made the armor for these Horseclaws, and that's the same level of tech, the same kind of, military organization is using this. All right, so let's get in the box and check out the toy. So there it is. It stands pretty well. I was worried about it like keeping its balance or being able to balance, but works really good. The armor fits over the Horseclaw head really well. You can remove the armor if you want to, which is kind of neat. You can't remove it. I'll show you later on the neck. That has to stay. You don't have any feathers to replace that armor, but you can see you can move the feathers around, which lets you kind of pose things. The saddle and the armor and the leggings on the chocobo and its feet, all the details like really great. And it's amazing, like look at all the articulation you've got in the toes and stuff. It's pretty awesome. Probably more than I'd care for, but what's nice is that lets you make a stable base, and it's pretty stiff, so it'll hold up your character. There's a little posability in the legs, but the way the legs are set up on the on these Horseclaws, you really can't do too much with them, I guess, if you want them to support themselves and the rider. I love this, how there's like that padding behind the armor. Yeah, it looks very realistic. Like there's some kind of padding that's going to like rest against the head of the Horseclaw and its beak and stuff. And you imagine that's everywhere else. Here you can see it falls over pretty easily. But, if you kind of hold the feet flat and then repose the figure, you can find a nice center of gravity. And it holds pretty well, which is good. It came with a stand. You can see I've got that behind the Bodyguard over there. All right, so let's take his head off and see how this is constructed. I'm kind of curious, like how the armor goes together and how good the articulation is with the neck. So it's just made up of, just like layered groups of the armor. And you can see those are just like little pieces that pop together that kind of form like a snake that acts as the neck. And that's just covered up with, almost like skirts, I guess, of armor and feathers that allow for all that articulation. I eventually got the neck back on, but it was definitely making sure the right skirt was in the right place and making sure that they were rotated correctly, and then getting everything to match up. But once it was back together, it felt really strong. It didn't feel like it was weakened or it was going to pop apart. So that's really great. One of the cool features about this is that it comes with a new sort of pelvis part and a couple other little parts of armor for the bodyguard, so that he can properly sit onto the on the saddle. Because the way the armor's constructed, the way the figure comes stock, you won't be able to like spread his legs and then like bend his legs into a sitting position with all the armor pieces on there. So I'm going to dismantle him and then put in those new pieces and then see how he fits onto the Horseclaw, because that's the whole reason I got it. I really wanted that mounted figure, like the joust figure, this cool armored knight on his armored Horseclaw. So we'll dive into that. I'm kind of studying, how he's put together, and I'm also thinking like, hey, this is a pretty expensive figure. I don't want to mess this up. So the first thing was give him a little bath. So I just do what I always do, fill up a coffee cup with water, microwave it for a minute till it gets really hot, and then soak your figure in there. And then, a little jiggling. Oh, did you see that? I totally spilled water everywhere. It was a little more snug than I thought it was going to be. But that let me, pull the figure together apart. It really released the plastic, so that worked out pretty well. If you're planning on doing this yourself, maybe take pictures, or you can watch this video here. I just tried to lay out the armor the way that I took it apart, so I'd be able to reassemble everything. Because you're replacing that pelvis piece and then some of the other armor pieces, like the ones on the back, and you actually have to like remove the legs and remove a bunch of pieces. So take your time, keep warming up the pieces in the water, because you don't want to break something. Definitely the hot water will soften the plastic a lot, and it'll be a lot easier to not only take it apart, but then when you put it back together. Here you can see some of the pieces all laid out, and definitely the directions are pretty good. Lots of really good diagrams, even though I couldn't read it. Although, what I did, I used the Google Translate, where you use your camera and it'll translate an image or any text on an image, and it worked really great with these instructions. Although I didn't really need to do it. It's pretty straightforward. This piece is like the main, I guess, like the hips, that go into either thigh and really allow the legs to like rotate and to move up and down. So I got the guard back together, and he looked great. You really couldn't tell like that I'd done any changes except to the armor in the back. So he doesn't have sort of this piece hanging down the back that would have blocked him from sitting, but he gets like good movement on his legs, so you can get him nice and wide to fit onto the saddle. And so this is my first time trying to see how he sits. The saddle can actually be positioned in different ways. I wasn't really sure why it allowed that, but the standard position it was in, like when it came, I just left it that way, and that seemed to work out really well. Here I'm just like making sure I don't break anything. I didn't want to bend anything or put any pressure on any piece of the armor too much, but you can see how it allows now for his legs to really spread out, so he can grab onto the sides of the Horseclaw with his legs and get his feet into into the stirrups and all kinds of different poses. So after messing around with him a little bit, trying some different things, I set up the Horseclaw with the stand to see how that worked, and it seemed pretty good. It would hold up the character. It's kind of like one of those gripping stands where it's almost like a claw at the end, so you could grab onto a leg or grab onto the back feathers, or even grab onto the soldier itself. And what's neat is I think it came with this extra sword, just kind of like a longer kind of I guess like a heavier sword that you would use when you're mounted. You know, it didn't come with, I was hoping it would come with like some kind of lance or something like that. Maybe I'll like design and 3D print one and just throw some silver on it, because that would be pretty awesome. Actually, I think I'm going to do that. But you can see he's got his sword and that cool kind of shield they come with. You know, he can hold that. And then in his other hand, you know, he holds he's got the reins. And then the feet fit into the stirrups. And looks really nice. Like it really fits nicely. You know, the scale looks right, and the armor, you know, matches up. I was worried the armor wouldn't match up, you know, because they were two different toys, but you know, same manufacturer, so they just you know, I'm sure they just sync that up. And here I'm just messing around with the stand and seeing what I can do with that. But yeah, really really nice toy, and like everything I'd hoped it would be. You know, it really feels like it's from the movie. And so here I gave him the big sword just to see how that would feel. You know, he knows his Horseclaw. He doesn't need his reins and stuff like that. It'll just obey his commands. He's got his like big sword, and you know, playing around with, you know, no base, just kind of letting it stand. And that's actually how I have it displayed now, without the stand. So I just find those stands are kind of, you know, they're clear, but they're still obtrusive. You still see them. And so here's the beauty shot, all set up, ready for battle. Looks so good. The feet going into the stirrups, those claws on the Horseclaw, the armor, all the detail in that, the way it matches up with the rider. And that rider, I mean, that's an awesome figure on its own. But the two of these together, it's just really great. Especially from a movie like that. I mean, waited like 40 years for this toy to come out. Very, very cool. Really, really cool. And so I took it outside, you know, just to see it in sunlight. Looks pretty neat. Like they're out on the plains near the toxic jungle, doing some patrols. But yeah, it'd be neat to have a bunch of these. Or man, I'd love to see a nice Nausicaa figure come out in the same scale. I think he's around 1/6 scale. Just pretty cool. Could throw some of my classified G.I. Joes on there and see how they felt. Or a stormtrooper riding on the back of this would be kind of neat. And there it is. I just threw it on our solo stove because it's kind of like shiny stainless steel. Give it some bounce light and some reflection, almost like it's, you know, posed on armor itself. And there it is on my shelf. That's my kind of rando shelf. Kind of fits in there. I've got that other tank that's a Miyazaki design, not from an anime, but from one of his books. And so, yeah, I just like really dig this toy. It's awesome. So definitely recommend it. Pick it up if you are a Nausicaa Valley of the Wind fan. Thanks for watching.